the basic gist of it, just to make it real quick, is she was an actress on that show, The Mandalorian, which I never watched. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really that big into Star Wars anyway, but I never watched that show. And she got fired because she made a tweet comparing hating people for their political differences, i.e. when liberals don't like conservatives, basically, comparing that to Nazi treatment of the Jews. So, yeah, I mean, okay, to be as fair as I possibly can, I don't think she was trying to imply the Holocaust or anything like that, but I guess this is how it starts when you dehumanize people. So, yeah, that's something that she said, and she got fired from the show for that. Yeah, I don't think really that's surprising, but does anyone remember that whole thing now, from 3 years ago or so now? I didn't really think it was that long ago, 3 years. It didn't feel that long ago, and that's why I really didn't know if I was going to have to recap this, because, did I have to recap this? I don't know, because was it so long ago that people don't remember anymore? Who knows? I don't know. But when I think about it, it's a thing where I only know because I remember at the time I didn't really care about hearing about that because I didn't watch that show. I don't care if she's on it or not. But I just remember the outrage to that was just insane. It was horribly irritating to hear about after a while. But yeah, remember her. And the reason I'd say remember her, I don't think she would want me to say that because I guess she's still in movies. She remember she was in a movie Ben Shapiro made called like Terror on the Prairie or something like that. Yeah, I remember not even a week after she got fired, she signed on to do a movie with Ben Shapiro, and I knew that was all right. Well, just going straight down like that, just like that slide whistle sound of going straight down. That's what's happening right now. But I never saw that either. Unlike most people with The Mandalorian, where I'm in the minority for that, I'm in the majority for this one. I never saw that. But I guess the paycheck wasn't good enough for her because she's trying to sue Disney and Lucasfilm now. Which, I mean, just to get the elephant in the room out of the way, I mean, yes, that's why you would sue them this far afterwards. It's for money. And that's fine, make your money, do what you have to do. But it has to be just put out there. It's not really for a principle thing. It's for money. So anyway, according to The Hollywood Reporter, she's suing Disney and Lucasfilm for, quote, discrimination and wrongful termination. And we'll be getting into that later. Both of those. We'll be getting into the specifics of both those charges later. But, also, according to The Hollywood Reporter, she claims she was fired for, quote, voicing right-wing opinions on social media and seeks a court order that would force Lucasfilm to recast her. All right, so first things first with that. You can make the argument that that's technically what happened. She was fired for voicing right-wing opinions on social media, if that's what you want to call it. And, I mean, yeah, sure, that's what it was. Okay, that's not inaccurate. But the thing is, you're suing to be rehired. I mean, okay, first of all, you're suing these people, so there's going to be bad blood. If this even works and they just rehire you, there's going to be bad blood anyway. Like, who on the cast is going to want to, work with you? Who's going to want to do anything like that? I mean, it's like, a comparison would be if someone's bullying you in school or, like, kind of teasing you a bit, and you have sort of thin skin and you want them to, like, apologize to you in front of everyone. Well, then who's going to want to, like, hang out with you, bro? I mean, but I shouldn't use the word bullying, because, okay, if you're getting bullied, you should, I mean, then to me, it's like, well, then all bets are off, that they should apologize. But if you're just kind of getting, goofed on a little bit and you demand an apology, well, okay, why would people want to work with you? I mean, even if it's like the morally right thing to do, who's going to want to work with you after that? I mean, you seriously, I don't know, you want to be rehired? Like, I don't know, that just seems like a joke to me. And then second of all, like I said, I never saw the show, but I assume that character just got written out. I don't even know the character's name, who she played. So I assume they just kind of wrote her out of the show, and they're just gone. Like, I don't know, maybe they pulled the whole, she had to go back to her home planet and she died on the way or something. But now they want her to bring her back. Is it going to be as the same character? Is it going to be as someone different? I mean, I assume they didn't, like, kill her off screen or something, but, like, did you think about this at all? Maybe she wants to be hired in a different Disney project. I mean, that's possible, Maybe when she says rehired, she just means rehired by Disney. Maybe, I don't know, when they inevitably reboot Star Wars because they ran out of things to pointlessly reboot and they just reboot the original trilogy. Maybe she wants to play Princess Leia. I don't know. I mean, it's possible, But, I mean, let me say this, that I hate how lawyers write their statements when they sue someone. Okay, that's a completely separate rant. But I hate the way they write. I've seen a few of them, especially when it involves celebrities, because they have some, they have some source material they can, cutely shove in there. And I'm going to quote exactly what the beginning of the opening statement for why they're suing Disney said. And the exact quote is, A short time ago, in a galaxy not so far away, defendants made it clear that the only one orthodoxy in thought, speech, or action was acceptable is their empire, and that those who dared to question or failed to fully comply would not be tolerated. Dude, just shut up, okay? Just shut up. Like write it like you're writing a news release or something. Like, don't write it like you're a freaking screenwriter, okay? Like, don't. Like, that's obnoxious story. Just say what you're suing about, okay? Write it like it's, I don't know, like a news brief about why this is happening, okay? Don't, like, I don't know if you wanted to be a screenwriter and your parents didn't believe in you enough, so you ended up being a lawyer, which I mean, I guess isn't really that big of a, I mean, that bad of a jump, you know, lawyers still can get paid a lot of money, but I don't know what your point is, but don't write them like that. It seems like a lot of lawyers do that. I don't get why, you know. If you wanted to write like that, be an author, be a screenwriter, be something. Don't go into law, okay? But anyway, moving on from that, and again, according to the Hollywood Reporter, I'm just going to say, unless I say differently, I'm not saying according to the Hollywood Reporter anymore, because if you haven't noticed, I like to cite my sources, because I just want to make sure, you know, if I'm wrong, I don't want to be the one catching the crap, you know, they can. No, that's not the reason. The reason is just because I just want to show that I'm not just, you know, making this up. I got this from somewhere. And I'm going to stop saying according to the Hollywood Reporter every time, because I guess they're the ones who broke the story. So they're probably the biggest site that covered this. So when I was looking up information, the vast majority of it came from them. So I'm just going to say according to sources or something from now on. I guess I won't be held to that. I may switch again just because I don't feel like saying that anymore. But for now, according to my sources, according to the complaint, Disney and Lucasfilm harassed and defamed Carano for refusing to conform with their viewpoints on issues relating to Black Lives Matter, preferred pronouns, and disproven claims of election interference. And then she also named an incident where she was required to, quote, meet with a representative of the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Discrimination and demand a public apology. And for those who aren't aware of that, I think that's I don't think they really went into detail in the article, but I believe that's a separate incident where, because her firing came from a lead up of a few things. And one of the incidents that involved apparently she made some sort of joke about pronouns in her bio, and a lot of fans were asking her to put her preferred pronouns in her bio. I've said before, and this kind of ties in earlier when I was talking about how celebrities don't need to be advocates for issues or whatever. I don't think she needs to do anything she doesn't want to do. But I'm just saying, you know, and I've thought this before, you know that this is a sensitive issue to a lot of people. You should probably just steer clear of it when you know that you could get in trouble, especially when you're working with Disney, which is, you know, king of the wokes or whatever, according to a lot of people. So you know what you're getting into. You might as well just leave it alone. You know, don't go into it at all. And I'm not saying what she did was mocking people or whatever, and that's not a point she made. Apparently she wasn't mocking anyone, which, okay, I mean, fair enough, but I'm just saying it's a thing where, you know, do you really want to fight this fight? I don't know. I'm not saying she had to. In fact, I feel like when people say, and I've heard this defense, that it's okay that she did that because, well, what, she's just supposed to cave to them and put the pronouns in? I don't think people really care at all. I mean, yes, there are people who are going to demand that she does a certain thing, but the vast majority of people just wouldn't care if she didn't put them in at all, you know? So, no, just don't put anything. Don't say anything. Don't respond. I mean, that's the smart thing to do, I guess, in my opinion, but I don't know. But the thing is, like, I know people have made this point before, but this is the thing, because at first I didn't know if I was going to want to talk about this, especially because it's a vaguely political thing. And I kind of had an unspoken rule. I don't really want to talk about two somewhat political topics on the same show just because I like to mix it up. I mean, I have political opinions like everyone else, but I did for this one because one of the things that really just, I don't know why it does, but pushes my buttons in this day and age is situations like this where people turn it into a free speech issue. And I know people have said this before, but I'm going to say it now. It's not a diminishment of your free speech, your constitutional free speech, for a company that you work for to have a problem with the comments that you made. That's how any company is going to work. Any company would do that. I'm not saying every company would fire her for comments she made. Not every company would. But I'm just saying any company is going to have a personal problem with it. And unless you're working for the government, they're not allowed to fire. I mean, I'm not trying to be Mr. You know, constitutional lawyer, like I know what I'm doing. But I'm just saying that from my understanding, most companies aren't going to do anything about it. You know, I mean, most companies, unless it's the government, cannot be constitutionally held to keep someone employed, or at least for that reason. So, no, I mean, it's not really a diminishment of your constitutional free speech. And it's a completely separate argument if you want to talk about whether or not it's fair or wrong or whatever. I mean, that's fine. But don't bring it to a court of law, okay? That's kind of the thing that annoys me. Don't bring it to a court of law. It's not a diminishment of your free speech. But anyway, I mean, this goes back to what I said earlier, that most media companies are pretty liberal, or at least liberal in public. because a lot of them, I mean, if you really look at a lot of media companies, and I don't want to slander them, but I'm pretty sure Disney did at one point. I mean, Walt Disney himself was a Republican. A lot of them are pretty conservative just because they donate to Republican politicians because, obviously they're big companies, make a lot of money, and they don't want, liberals who are going to like take a lot of it in taxes to be running things. So, of course, they're liberal in public. A lot of them are conservative behind closed doors. So why would you be surprised when these are the kind of statements or things you're doing and then they fire you, How could that be surprising? But then according to NBC News, and again, I guess I sound like an idiot here because I go on about how I'm not going to keep saying what I'm quoting because it's the Hollywood Reporter, and then the next time I quote something, it's someone else, or whatever. According to NBC News, Carano said, "The truth is I was being hunted down from everything I posted, every post I liked, because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of the time. And then my words were consistently twisted to demonize and dehumanize me as an alt-right-wing extremist." Okay, first I'm going to apologize real quick because I realize whenever I'm reading something, I read like an idiot. And that's just because a little behind-the-scenes thing here. My setup here is I'm reading off my computer when I'm quoting something. It's kind of far away from where I'm looking when I'm kind of speaking into the microphone. I have to turn my head really weird. Sometimes I don't even try to turn my head. I try to face the microphone with my, just looking into it, and then just move my eyes to see what's written down for me. But that's not easy, so I'm sorry that I think I'm doing a pretty good job, all things considered. But anyway, back to the quote that I just talked about. I mean, when you start posting things that seem to be making fun of preferred pronouns, and you post, election conspiracies, which can be embarrassing to a big company, especially the latter part. I mean, I'm not going to say anything about the former, but the latter part especially, of course they're going to take notice of what you're doing and probably be suspicious, looking around, seeing what you're doing. I mean, that shouldn't be surprising. That shouldn't be surprising at all, especially, in this day and age. And I think it's also interesting that you're saying you're being labeled as a right-wing extremist. You're not being labeled as a right-wing extremist. You are a right-wing. I mean, I think literally earlier a quote you had mentioned is that you were being punished for your right-wing views, You are right-wing. You don't need to consider yourself an extremist. I mean, you don't, and it's a matter of opinion if you're extremist or alt-right or whatever, but I don't see how anyone can look at what you're posting and not come to that conclusion. And, I'm kind of confused about her because I've heard mixed things where sometimes it seems like she's not even, and there are people like this who aren't, explicitly political but have some opinions that might lean to the right or lean to the left or whatever, and they don't like when people label them a certain way because they don't view themselves as political. They view themselves as just, normal, I guess. I mean, most people aren't, I wouldn't say aren't explicitly political, but so she seems to have a problem with that, but I don't really know for sure if she is super political. I mean, when you start, at first I thought when she was the first fired, that maybe that was the case, that she's just somewhat moderate and posts right-wing things once in a while. But, when you make a movie with Ben Shapiro, I'm sorry, but you can't plead, well, he's just the one who would make a movie with me. You have to understand that's how you're going to be labeled, and that's what it is. You kind of have to understand that. So, moving on from that, I think it's a bit funny that, you would use the phrase dehumanize and being referred to being labeled that way. I know it's not just being labeled that way, it's that she feels she's being attacked in that way, but you're using that phrase when, if you're not right, if that is the case with her, that she's not right wing and just posts a few right wing opinions, I'm pretty sure the people who are defending you don't really want to hear you using a phrase like dehumanize when someone labels you as right wing, because they would label themselves that way and they don't view it as dehumanizing themselves. But anyway, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Carano was told to meet with the Lucasfilm president, Kathleen Kennedy, and 45 employees who identify as LGBTQ+. And according to the suit, she declined and was terminated shortly after. I mean, I feel like sharing that information, I think the point of sharing all this information was supposed to help her case in terms of, look at all they put me through. They didn't just fire me. They humiliated me as well, and okay, fine, if that's the point. But if anything, I think that just makes things worse for her. I mean, because you weren't just fired for making that tweet now. It seems like you were fired for purposely not taking action they asked you to do. Is that not the way a job will work? I mean, I'm 21 years old, so clearly I'm not, the master of going out and finding out everything there is to know about the world. But I'm just saying, is that not the way a job would work? You get fired because you're not doing what your boss is telling you to do. I know there's like a pretty literal way to look at it, but assume you work for accounting, or you're in food service or something, and you just tell your boss, I'm not going to do something you're telling me to do. You want me to go to a meeting? I'm not going to that. They can fire you, and it'll make sense for them to do it. So I don't know what releasing all this information, if that was supposed to help her case at this point, but for me, it just makes things worse. I don't know. Although, like I said, I wasn't really super invested in this whole thing in the first place, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter. But I'm moving on a little bit, that I'm not saying that 100% makes things right for Disney, but I'm just saying that, kind of helps their case a little bit. But also, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Carano alleges Disney engaged in a post-termination smear campaign, citing the abrupt removal of an episode of Running Wild with Bear Grylls, in which she appeared from the show's scheduled lineup in an effort to malign her. Though her episode eventually aired, Disney allegedly admitted any mention of her name and likeness in promotional materials. I mean, I'm not really familiar with that show either. I don't really want to do a bunch of research to know how I should feel, but I don't know, does that show really make an effort to promote guests being a part of the episode? Especially when even before this, she wasn't super well known. I mean, you were on a Star Wars show, and that's great. But the thing is that I thought that was a bit interesting is that Mandalorian show. It seems to have a lot of guest stars in it, quite a few, and I'm sure not all of them are super hyped up or super, I mean, it's not like the absolute cream of the crop of actors were only the ones starring in that show. I mean, it's not always like that for the movies either. So, I'm not surprised. I'm not really surprised they wouldn't hype up your appearance that much. And I mean, I don't really see how even if that's the case, though, if they omitted her appearance, then any mention of her appearance in promotional material, well, yeah, I mean, you just got fired. Disney owns that show. I mean, of course, they don't really want to go around promoting you in it. And I mean, if you want to consider it a smear campaign that they might remove the episode, I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of a separate conversation. Maybe you could classify it as that, but they did air it eventually. So I guess I'm assuming that the point of that statement is more about intent. It seems like that they were attempting to smear her, and thinking of removing it at all, I guess, would do that. I don't know. So whatever. But I still think that's a bit of a goofy thing to add to the suit. And again, it makes me think, why are you bringing this up now? Why is now the right time? But moving on a little bit, apparently, along with her being recast, she wants, quote, at least $75,000 plus punitive damages. So that's kind of the thing that makes me think, I'm a bit sorry, if anything, because it does kind of make it seem about just that it is about money when you're just asking for the $75,000. Because I'm assuming that, I don't want to start making comments on her finances, but I'm assuming that's a lot of money for her because, I mean, when was the last time she was cast in like a major production or a major role? I mean, unless you're counting the Daily Wire movie, wasn't it The Mandalorian? Wasn't that the last time? Or stuff that hadn't aired yet that was after that? And I mean, yeah, it's a thing where I'm sorry, your whole acting career got, flushed down the drain there for this. Although, I mean, I guess that should probably encourage you to think more about statements you're going to make before you say them. But I am sorry about that. But, it makes this whole thing less funny and more kind of depressing. And it makes me kind of think, well, gee, I mean, I hope she does kind of get recast. I hope she earns her money. And I saw earlier, I didn't mention this in like my notes or anything because I didn't think it was that relevant. But I thought I'd just mention, I know this from memory. Apparently her deal was she made $25,000 per episode from The Mandalorian. So I don't know if she means that it could be maybe there was like 3 episodes left in the season that she didn't film or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I think that $75,000, when you're suing for, and I know that's a lot of money. Hell, it's a lot of money for anyone who might be listening to the show. That's a lot of money. I'm not going to lie about that. That's like what a the average person in a year doesn't make that much money. But for someone who you think would be might be rich at this point from their appearances in movies, TV, all that, you think they'd be after a lot more if they're going to sue someone. But going into the charges, I mentioned I would do this earlier, and I'm doing it now. I'm not surprised that, she views this as wrongful termination. I mean, that seems to be the whole thing people were upset about this whole thing, that she was being terminated because she's a conservative. So, okay, I'm not surprised that would be the base of the lawsuit. But the discrimination thing apparently comes from that she believes this is sex discrimination. And it's because, and again, according to the Hollywood Reporter, she points to Pedro Pascal's 2017 post comparing former President Donald Trump to Hitler. And that's her evidence that it's sex discrimination, that he didn't get fired. I mean, I've said it before, but I mean, like, you seriously think that's about sex, then you're wrong. I mean, it comes from the fact that obviously, since they're more liberal, they're not going to fire. And that's like a whole different conversation. Should he face some sort of consequences for saying that? I guess it depends on whether or not you think Donald Trump is like Hitler. I mean, I think most people, the vast majority of people, conservative, liberal, whatever, can accept, comparing him, an American president who's not in office anymore, to a dictator who killed 6 million Jews is kind of a ridiculous comparison. But that's not going to get him fired. Obviously that it wouldn't. And I feel like, the thing is, when you're in a situation like that, where if you're a conservative and you know that you're working for a company that's pretty liberal, like, Disney has this reputation for being, apparently, when again, I'm sure they're, behind the scenes are donating to Republicans left and right, but you have to kind of accept this is the environment you're in, and you don't have to like it. In fact, yeah, I think there's a case to make that I'm not going to say it's unfair he didn't get fired, but that it's kind of sad that he could make a statement like that and there'd probably be less blowback. But, it's first of all, it's not about sex, and second of all, if you have to kind of accept that's your environment, either, accept it or leave it or get fired from it. I guess there's a third option. So the thing is, I think this whole thing is just pretty ridiculous. I mean, I've emphasized it so many times. Suing them this many years later seems like a cry for attention, and I'm giving it to them. So I mean, it's it's working. But I think the thing is that Disney, just to prove her wrong in these like free speech, ride or die free speech people wrong, I want them to stay in and win. Because I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal analyst, but I assume they would win this. I don't really see how they couldn't. But at the same time, the $75,000 just makes them think, they might just think, all right, well, let's just get this over with. Just, settle her out of court and just get this over with. Because that's chump change to a company like them. So part of me thinks that, okay, maybe this will just go away pretty soon. Although on the other hand, the $75,000 is evidence that, well, I mean, maybe they won't do anything about it, because if they lose, they can afford it. And, who's to say what the problem is? But although if they do lose, I mean, that would look pretty bad, in the news if they lost after all this time. I mean, I know Disney's had some bad news before, so that looked pretty bad. So I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag whether or not I think they should settle out of court or not. But I'm not their legal, I'm not their legal analyst, so they shouldn't come listening to me about it, and I doubt they ever would. But I think the thing is that this may not be chump change to her, as I used the phrase earlier, because the thing that just kind of the icing on the cake of this whole thing is that Elon Musk will be funding this lawsuit. Yeah, that's right. This apparently comes from a pledge that he made that he's going to, quote, fund legal action for users on Twitter who claim they have faced discrimination by their employers over their activity on the platform. The offer comes with no limit on costs, with Musk saying he would go after the board of directors and the companies too. And by the way, he said X in his statement. I've said before on this show, I'm never calling it X. It's still Twitter to me. I haven't used it in years, but I'm not calling it X. That's stupid. It's still Twitter to, the rest of us. So, like, the thing is with that, he's saying it like a child almost, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not trying to like talk down to him, but he's saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, we'll go after the board of directors too," and it's so really, not only do you want to sue them, but you want them just destroyed, just the company broken apart. Like, what do you? I mean, it's not like this lawsuit, because it's for $75,000. It's not like it's going to break Disney, but it seems like, wow, you're pretty vindictive, Elon. And that seems vaguely authoritarian in my opinion. I mean, it's weird because the whole free speech thing comes from society now is authoritarian in their view, because you can get banned from Twitter, or you used to, thanks Elon, I guess you can't anymore, for talking how the election was stolen, or for saying racial slurs or whatever. And because you couldn't do that for a while on Twitter, well then, okay, that's it. 1984 has come true. But it seems authoritarian to say because the company acts within what I perceive to be their legal rights by firing someone, then that means that now from this point forward, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, is going to make it his life goal, it seems like, to destroy them. Does that not seem somewhat authoritarian? It seems like one of those things where when a corporation does it instead of the government, it's cool, I guess. Or, when they're doing it for a reason different than Twitter used to do it. But I don't know. I mean, he clearly has a vendetta against Disney, which I understand why, because like I said, they're like the lords of the woke or whatever. But how does this not raise several red flags for everyone? How do people not see? I guess because not enough people care, which I don't blame them. But, it seems just crazy that he would say that, and that he wouldn't kind of see the irony in his statement when talking about free speech and talking about, the freedom of the people and, these whole populism ideas that he believes in. That he would believe in all those things, and then he would say that. But anyway, it's not just him. Joe Bernerock, I'm probably saying that wrong, but he's a spokesman for Twitter, basically, said, quote, as a sign of Twitter's commitment, and by the way, he didn't say Twitter either, but I just changed it when writing it down because I'm not saying X. As a sign of Twitter's commitment to free speech, we're proud to provide financial support for Gina Carano's lawsuit, empowering her to seek vindication of her free speech rights on Twitter and the ability to work without bullying, harassment, or discrimination. So I think it's funny. I don't think any right-minded, Elon Musk, I mean, he believes in this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that you have to be insane to believe in the kind of things he does, because a lot of people believe that, he is a warrior for free speech, and that the government and the former Twitter went too far in taking it away. So there are plenty of people who share that mindset, but I always doubt these people, these big people and companies, especially the ones in Twitter who were there before he got here, believe in these kind of things. So I really have it's just a funny image of a professional publicist typing that out, and then looking at this case and just realizing what they're doing. But, whatever. I guess that this is what he has to do. Maybe he's proud of this job. I don't know. I don't mean to talk down to the guy. So, yeah, I guess that's what he's doing now. And according to NBC News, Musk also said, quote, "Please let us know if you would like to join the lawsuit against Disney." So, yeah, I guess he's trying to turn this into some massive, class action lawsuit. I don't know if that's the correct term, but I'm assuming there's some sort of massive attack against Disney for some reason, where other people who have been wronged by Disney are going to jump in and, start suing them with Elon Musk's help. So I mean, that would be pretty funny to see this whole, I don't know what they would name themselves, but, the anti-woke squad against Disney. I mean, I kind of want to see that. Who else would be willing to join the fight? I mean, I'm sure there are other people who feel Disney has wronged them, stepped on their free speech, and trampled the First Amendment, and spit on the American flag, and, I don't know, joined communism, all that stuff. I kind of want to see who else would. I don't know if Elon Musk was anticipating that, other more conservative celebrities would jump on, but I assume if he's getting any responses to this of, yeah, I'll join your lawsuit, it's that, joke of people who take photos of the Twitter profile pictures of themselves in their cars and wearing a MAGA hat, and they're holding it down to their crotch, looking down at the camera with their sunglasses on to look awesome, and have the American flag and the cross in their name on Twitter. I think those are the people who are, and they're going to say so because I really hated that new Disney movie where that dumb character turned out to be gay. I didn't like that, boy. So I think it's interesting to see who's going to join this lawsuit, if anyone even does. And I wonder if that, if Elon Musk would take that seriously, but I guess we'll have to see here. But honestly, then Carano made this statement about this whole ordeal of Elon Musk funding her fight, saying, quote, "I am honored that my case has been supported by the company that has been one of the last glimmers of hope for free speech in the world." And I mean, that quote, I read that in kind of a funny voice, because reading that just makes me want to start yelling and just thinking, dude, just shut up, okay? Just shut up. I'm sorry, but I'm tired of hearing this whole free speech crap about how Twitter is the last beacon of hope for free speech in the world. I know I shouldn't say the last, but, it's like, no, it's not the last beacon of free speech in the world, okay? Twitter banning people in the past for conspiracy theories, and now that they don't do that anymore, does not make them a haven for free speech, okay? It does not. And I'm tired of hearing this whole thing about how free speech is dying and Twitter is there to save free speech. I mean, it just sounds like a joke. I mean, the idea that any social media company can be that is just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And the idea that Twitter is now where, you can go for free speech, where free speech reigns, and where the woke goes to die, is just ridiculous. I'm tired of hearing about it. But anyway, I mean, the free speech thing is mostly just upsets me, and I'm glad, I'm excited to see how the lawsuit goes, because I said before, I can't imagine a jury or a judge, in their right mind ruling in favor of her after all this. I just can't. And I could be proven wrong. I mean, courts have made decisions that I strongly disagree with in the past. I could be wrong, and we'll see if I am. I doubt I will be, but I could be. And, I guess all I'm saying is, with that in mind, it is possible. I see it as unlikely, but it is possible that she could win. And so if so, don't be surprised to see the return of Gina Carano's character when she explains, my home planet actually didn't explode like the show said I did randomly without showing me on it. I'm back now, and we're here. I'm here to blow more stuff up, and blow up. There's going to be a massive trench run on the Pfizer headquarters, blowing up the vaccine. So, look forward to that one, won't we? I mean, I've never seen The Mandalorian. I know some people don't like it, so who knows? Maybe this could be a radical change in direction that brings in all those people, brings in the people they lost, and just reels them right back in.